All right, let's get the other side now. We're joined by Student Representative Council's Community Outreach Officer, Karabo Asala. Thank you for being with us in studio, Ms. Asala. Wits sounds shocked. They said you were in partnership with them. You were all working together to try and house and register students, and then you decided to demonstrate.
Thank you, Francis, and good evening to you and your listeners as well. There were negotiation talks with the senior executive team at Wits. However, we reached a deadlock on certain demands, and what we were calling for is for students who are owing less than 150,000 Rand to be able to register. Those were some of our priority demands, including the cap of NSFAS, 45,000 Rand that NSFAS has imposed for students who are staying in internal and external accommodation. So these are some of the demands that we did not really reach a compromise on with the senior executive team, which is why we decided to take to the streets to protest.
Okay, but NSFAS, that's a government issue, right? So they've capped accommodation at 45,000 Rand. Why are you taking an issue you have with government to Wits's doorstep?
We are taking that because Wits does have capacity to provide accommodation for students. So indeed, you are right, NSFAS is a government entity. However, as Sharona mentioned, they have been beds secured for students. However, we feel that Wits is capacitated to do more, and we feel as the SRC that they're not doing just enough for students. Because we are still finding students sleeping in libraries, students are sleeping on our corridors as the SRC, and therefore we feel that the senior executive team, together with the Vice Chancellor, needs to do far better for students.
They say that 350 beds have been provided, so that's not nearly enough.
However, the number is far dire. We have about 559 students who currently don't have accommodation. And I find it quite problematic because the academic year is continuing as normal. Classes were disrupted to a certain extent. I mean, there were classes disrupted on main campus. Education and health science campuses, business was continuing as usual. However, we certainly feel that in order for us to progress, we need to find common ground with the senior executive team.
Yeah, it looked quite disruptive, the pictures that I saw. How many students took part today, and is that necessary, kind of the litter and things like that?
So with the protests, we had roughly about 40 students who were blocking the main entrances of the Wits main campus, that being the Yale North gate and the South gates. However, other students still continued to attend classes as per usual.
How many students are not able to register? And let's talk about deserving students who maybe are just too poor to pay the fees, but they've got the marks. They're there if they can just pay their debt, because that is the blockage.
So currently, we've been in talks with the Financial Aid Office and the Fees Office at Wits, and the number that we currently have right now is 6,102 students who are unable to register. And this number includes students who are very well deserving of being allowed to come back to Wits to continue their studies. We have students who are bright, who have averages of 84% doing medicine, currently in the fourth year, and they're not able to come back due to structures not being set in place to support them to come back. And I know a personal issue.
Let me just question you on that. I mean, if you're getting 84%, aren't you kind of, you're running through with scholarships provided by the private sector or Wits itself? You've got no issue if you're doing that well.
That's what may seem like the case. However, it's not, because we do also understand that even with these scholarships and bursaries, the financial aid you speak of, it is capped at a certain amount. So you can be a bright individual, be getting A's across your subjects. However, if the financial aid or the bursaries that are sponsoring you are not able to capacitate you, then you don't really have a say.
And Wits is saying it will register students if they owe 10,000 Rand or less, but not more. You want that to go all the way up to 150,000 Rand. What incentive is there then for students to pay fees?
There should be some form of incentive for students to pay fees. However,
but if they know everything's, will never, the debt will never be recouped, as it were, and they can continue their studies, what incentive will there be?
I think this is sometimes propelled by people who have left the system, and I'm speaking particularly of black individuals who have left the system to go on to study further, to find jobs, who don't necessarily feel that we need to pay back any debt. However, what we are saying as the SRC is capacitate students, have them study, leave the system, and give back in their own way. That is the incentive we are identifying.
Let me wrap it up with this. I mean, I think a lot of South Africans, their heart goes out to deserving students who simply don't have the money. This is a country where poverty is right. We don't have free education yet. However, if you say to Wits, you can't demand any sort of fees, you can't demand the payback of debt. Wits and other institutions have always said they've got running costs. You will collapse these institutions. Do you feel that that could be the end game where nothing works?
Our fight as the Wits SRC is ultimately to have a country with free education. However,
but that's a fight with government, not Wits, right?
Certainly, but that is our position. That's the position that we hold at the Wits SRC, is we one day envision a country where each individual is afforded the right and the access to free education. But our foot in the door right now is to say at least reduce some of the fees in order to allow certain individuals to access these doors of higher education. But ultimately, our fight is for free education, and we believe certainly that through our means, we will accomplish it.
Okay, so what happens now? More classes disrupted, or will you work again with Wits execs to try and solve this problem?
So currently, as I'm speaking with you, there are my colleagues, part of the Wits SRC, who are in negotiations currently with the Dean of Students and the Senior Executive Team. We are still trying to mull over some of the demands that they felt that were possibly too much. So what we're calling for now is a mass meeting at 7 p.m. and we're inviting media houses to join in on that. That will then provide a line of march and a way forward and how we'll move from tomorrow henceforth.
All right, we'll look out for that. Thank you for your time tonight. That was the SRC Community Outreach Officer from Wits, SRC Student Representative Council, Karabo Asala.